Hello viewers, it's a joy and an honor to have you on board. This is a Rays of Hope program, and this week we have a very interesting topic, and that is leadership in times of crisis. I am Lucy Waweru, very glad to have you. Please remember that you can stream live on CAC TV Kenya on Facebook and on CAC TV Kenya on YouTube. Again, I say, karibu sana. It's such a joy and honor to have you. Now, it is said that everything stands and falls with leadership. Leadership is everything. And more so, during times of crisis, then leadership is very key again, because if everything stands and falls with leadership, then it means that things can really collapse in times of crisis unless we get it right in leadership. And we are living in such a time, the season that we are in, and that's why this is very important for us to discuss. Now, in studio today, we are honored to have one leader in this area, Mr. John Mwai, who is a lawyer and a leadership trainer, and who will bring us more light, more insights in this important topic of leadership in times of crisis. Mr. Mwai, we thank God for you, and thank you for finding time, amidst your busy schedules, to be with us on CAC TV today in the Rays of Hope program. Karibu sana. Kindly say hi to the viewer.
Thank you very much, Reverend Lucy. Hello viewers. I want to welcome you today to this program as we dissect and look into leadership in times of crisis. Be with us as we continue with the program and discuss various issues on leadership.
Wonderful. Now, the context that we are living in, how do you describe it?
Reverend Lucy, I would like to state that it's a difficult times, especially because of the COVID-19 pandemic. It has been almost now 2 years, and the people have been in this crisis. So at times that calls for a lot of leadership, for a lot of leadership decisions, for a lot of leadership communications, so that everyone is at par at what is happening, and the leaders are able to guide people and to give them direction on what is happening at the current situation.
And wonderful, so that we can delve more into that.
Yes.
Perhaps an understanding of terms would help us, so that we are able even to understand the season we are living in even more.
Yes.
So what is leadership?
Basically speaking, sometimes when you talk leadership, people normally see leadership in terms of the political class, the political leaders, people who are leading big companies. But I would like to state that leadership starts with a person. And in terms of definition, we normally say that leadership is a process where someone influences people or a group of people towards a certain goal, towards achieving a certain goal. So when we are talking of leadership, we normally say leadership is influence. And the leadership starts with a person. Before even you go to lead others, you have first to lead yourself. You have to lead yourself in making your own personal decisions. From there, maybe you lead your family, if you are a family person. From there, you lead other organizations. Maybe you go to the church and you become a leader there. Maybe you go to the corporate world and you become a leader. So it's basically important for the viewers to understand that leadership is not in those big seats. Leadership starts with an individual, and then it percolates to other areas and bigger areas. And sometimes when we are talking about leadership, Reverend Lucy, leadership is not also a position. Leadership is not being an MP or being an MCA or being a senator. Leadership is the influence you have. So even if you are a big person with holding a big position, but you don't have influence, you are not a leader.
So I hear you saying that leadership is about influence, and that I am a leader, the viewer is also a leader, because it begins, as you say, with leading a personal life.
Yes. You are a leader.
Yes.
I'm a leader. The viewer is a leader at their levels. Yeah. Even the junior most person in an organization, the person who is very subordinate down there is also a leader at that level. So you don't need to have a big position to be a leader. It starts with you. Yes.
And it's about influence.
And it's about influence. Wherever you are,
Yes.
you are supposed to have some influence.
Yeah.
Because there's nobody who lives alone. There are other people you have around you. You need to influence them. If it's in the family, if you are the man at the head of the family, you have to have some influence in your family, with your wife. You have to influence your wife. You have to influence your children. Sometimes you have even to influence the extended family towards a certain goal, towards a certain common goal. Yes.
And I would think then it can be positive or negative. And here we are talking about the positive.
We are talking about the positive influence. And sometimes influence sometimes is relative. Sometimes you may be influencing people negatively, but it also depends with who are seeing it. For example, we can talk about during the colonial times, during the times of Mau Mau rebellion. You know, to the colonialists, those who are leading the Mau Mau were leading them, they were like influencing them negatively. But to the Africans, they were influencing them positively. So influence is also relative, depending on the context.
Depending on it's good to,
Yes.
to know that.
Yes.
Now we understand leadership.
Yes.
How do you define crisis?
Reverend Ruth, I would like to even to our viewer to tell them that a crisis is an occurrence, it's an unexpected occurrence that comes and causes a lot of danger or some harm, either to an individual, to the community, or even to the society at large. Like now, the way we are talking about the COVID-19 pandemic, it's a crisis because it's causing some danger. It's causing some health crisis to members of the society, and indeed the whole world. Yes.
So an unexpected occurrence.
An unexpected occurrence that is causing some danger and some harm to the people. Yes.
And I think we are in a big crisis then.
And we are in a big crisis, and maybe I can even use the Kenyan context. We have had other crises that were basically facing the country. Maybe we can even talk about the attacks, the terrorism attacks. Like we can remember we had the Westgate terrorism attack. Yeah, that it caused a lot of crisis, a lot of danger, loss of lives, loss of property. And that's one example of a crisis that has hit our country. You can even remember another time we had the Solai Dam in Nakuru County, where a dam busted and killed so many people.
True.
Yeah, it caused a lot of crisis that required a lot of leadership and intervention so that people's lives and property can be saved. Or even another time we had a dire tragedy, Nakumatt supermarket in Nairobi town, in the city, at CBD, when it caught fire. And there was a big crisis, loss of life, loss of property. Those are few examples that people can relate with that are in terms of crisis. Things that happen, unexpected occurrence that causes a lot of danger, that causes a lot of harm, that causes loss of lives, and sometimes losses of property.
Wow. And in your assessment as a leadership consultant, one who is greatly involved in this area, are we at a good position now from a personal point, the personal leadership, the corporate leadership, families? Are we in a good position as we go through this current crisis, so to speak?
We can't say that we are in a good position because this crisis has come with a lot of challenges. It has come with a lot of challenges to the family, to the country, to people's jobs, to the corporate world. And it has been a difficult times as people try to cope. But as times move on, Kenyans and the people in the world are trying now to cope and knowing that we have a pandemic and we have to take leadership, even at our very individual levels. And the leadership comes from some things that we might take for granted. Putting on a mask. That is a decision you make as an individual, and you might even influence the others to put on a mask. Cleaning your hands, sanitizing your hands, or even social distance. It starts down there from the individual. You can tell others, hey guys, we can't stay so close to each other. Yeah, and you influence them from that level. You don't wait for the policeman to come and see whether you are putting on a mask. You have to make that decision at a very personal level, and they influence the rest, the people who are just close to you, and they influence them towards that, because that's the only way we shall be able to avoid this pandemic. Yes.
Wow, that's interesting, because then there's a lot of leadership that is needed then in the most basic levels, as you're putting it, like obeying the guidelines of the MOH guidelines.
Yes.
Because if we cannot obey that,
yes,
then we have failed in leadership.
Yes.
Even if we occupied a big seat, then we will not be influencing properly.
Yeah, in fact, the leadership, especially the main leadership of fighting COVID-19 pandemic, starts at a very basic level. Because the things that the guidelines and the protocols that are there are targeting an individual, a person. So if you don't offer leadership at that level, you as an individual, you offer leadership to yourself to do the right things, to do according to the guidelines, then at that level you are failing. So even before we hear from the government, even from before the police follows up, we need to offer ourselves leadership at that very basic level.
Wow, actually that reminds me.
Yes.
The issue of modeling, how important it is.
Yes.
That even as we are telling others to be good leaders of themselves and to influence their spheres properly, that we also need to model.
Yes.
Just the other day, a colleague was telling me about her young daughter, who is in the lower classes in primary school, and she challenged the mother the other day and said, "Mom, unaniambia nivae mask, but mwalimu anavaa hapa."
Yes.
So she was like, why? Modeling.
Yes, modeling.
Yeah.
Are we role models to those below us as leaders? Are we leading by examples as teachers? Are we doing what we are telling people to do? Because basically sometimes you find people, someone wants to put on a mask because he knows maybe there is a police operation.
Yeah.
Police is allowed. I've seen that police are going around looking for people without masks. But you are not doing it because of the guidelines that are there and the requirements that are there. You are doing it for the police, or you are doing it for the not because it's important to your health. You are doing it to protect yourself from the law enforcers, and that is where we fail as individuals in terms of leadership, and even in being the right role models. If you are a leader there, the things that the leadership, especially the political leadership, is saying to be done according to the health protocols, you should be doing them as a leader, because we have also seen even in the political class, the political leaders, you'll find them going loud without masks. They are not they are not encouraging social distance, especially in their campaigns. So they are also telling them that the people below there that you can do without doing this. Yeah. So as we have said, Lucy, being the good models to others and to the people who are following us is also very key and important. Very key. Yes.
Then I think that would lead us to the question of then what is it in a leader that would help them then become that leader that you're talking about, who is able to lead themselves and also lead others? What should a leader have then?
Yes. First of all, I would like to say that there are key leadership traits, key leadership characteristics that a leader needs. And maybe one of them is having a vision, a clear and achievable vision. Yeah, because even the Bible tells us that without a vision, people perish. When a crisis comes, the first thing for a leader is to have a clear vision on how to handle the crisis. Because you can't handle a crisis from nowhere. You have to have a vision that is, this is what we want to achieve. And maybe we have seen most of the leaders talking about achieving a certain target, a certain levels of COVID-19 infections, having some targets of achievement they want to achieve, and also setting guidelines to achieve some standards. So for a leader to handle a crisis, they have to have a vision on how they are going to go about it.
So you don't just wake up and start firefighting.
You just don't wake up and start running up and down. You have to have a clear, achievable vision. Yes, that's an important trait of a leader.
Wow.
Yes.
That's one of them, and I believe there are others.
The others, like a leader also should have an ability to adapt. Because in times of a crisis, so many things change. And sometimes you don't do things the normal way. So as a leader, you have to adapt very fast to the crisis. And know now things are not the way they were. I have to change my way of reading. I have to change my way of doing things. And I have to adapt to the new level. You know, there are people who are very rigid. To make them change, to make them change on their way of doing things. They are so rigid. So as a leader in terms of crisis, you have to adapt, and they adapt very fast.
Because you said that it's an unexpected occurrence.
It's an unexpected occurrence. So from the point the occurrence comes in, you don't do things the normal way. The same way you are doing them. You have to change, you have to adapt, and do it very swiftly. Yes, yes.
Wow. Wow.
Maybe another trait of a leader is taking responsibility, because leadership is a responsibility. Leadership is a burden. Yeah, you can't be a leader and expect just to be there. You have to be ready to shoulder that burden on behalf of the people you lead. Yeah, yeah. And that's why we normally say that leadership has more responsibility than the followers. Yeah, you have to be ready to take that responsibility. If you are a lazy leader who doesn't want to take that responsibility, then you don't have business becoming a leader or being followed by others. Yes.
Oh, that's key. It's responsibility.
It's a responsibility. It's a burden.
It's a burden.
And a heavy one.
Wow.
Being a leader is a burden and a heavy one, because there are so many people looking at you to shoulder that responsibility. Even at a family level, as the father in the family or as the head of the family, it's a responsibility you have. You have to give directions. You have to give guidelines on how things have to be done in your family. So it's not easy. You can't just be a leader then just stay like the people you are following.
And even at the personal level then, it's also a responsibility.
It's also a responsibility.
Guiding your life and making the right decisions.
Making the right decision.
It doesn't just happen when we are sleeping and relaxing. It's work.
It's work. It's a burden. It's a responsibility. Doing the right things. Taking the right directions of life. Making the right decisions. It's still a responsibility. Yes.
Yeah, because that reminds me of a moderator, the moderator of our church, and he keeps talking about the flawed even work ethic that we seem to have.
Yes.
People want to reap the fruits. They want to reap the benefits of positions.
Yes.
But they are not ready to work. And it's good that you're saying leadership is responsibility and it is not easy. I think you can emphasize that again.
Oh, yeah. Leadership comes with the responsibility. And the higher you go in leadership position, the higher the responsibility becomes. Yeah? Yeah. That's why you find senior managers, even in organizations, they don't have even time for their own because the burden is too heavy. So if you are there thinking that when you get a leadership position, you'll relax or you'll have less work. No, it becomes more. And the higher you go, the hotter it becomes. The responsibility becomes more and more and more. Yes.
To the one that is given more.
Yes.
More is expected.
More is expected.
More is expected.
Yes.
And I'm just imagining a leader like Moses, who I think is a good example.
Yes.
And leading all those people, there's a big challenge ahead, another one behind, some army pursuing them. And I just wonder, if I was Moses then, what would I do?
Oh, yes.
He couldn't go and sleep. He couldn't just leave the people.
Yes.
It's a heavy responsibility.
That's true. Actually, the example of Moses is a very good example of leading in terms of crisis, because the time that the Israelites were in the wilderness, it was a time of a lot of crisis. They were running from the Egyptians' army, and then At a point they reached the Red Sea, and Moses is like, where do we go now from here? Yeah, we are going to be killed all of us. It was a crisis. But we thank God, Moses came out of the crisis very well, and God guided him all throughout that crisis. And it's a good way. We can borrow from the crisis Moses was in when we are handling even crisis at personal levels, knowing that if we trust in God, God will take us through our crises that we are having.
Yeah.
Because even in family, sometimes we get into crisis. Maybe we get, somebody is sick in the family, sometimes we get bereaved, sometimes there is loss of employment, you know, in the family. And at a point we find ourselves in a crisis. But it's good for the viewer to know that after every crisis, God is able to take us through to the other end.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think we can, even at this point, even as we move on, also speak to viewers who are going through some crisis like bereavements at the moment, because there's some escalation. We must agree.
Yes.
Of we have quite a number of deaths, and even as we speak here, I know some colleagues, some people I know that have gone through double tragedies.
Yes.
Like 2 members of a family already,
Yes.
and we are hearing more and more of that. And of course, this program is Rays of Hope.
Yes.
And we encourage resilience and courage and hope. Perhaps you can just take a moment and encourage them just now as we move on.
Actually, Reverend Lucy, that is true. You know, the COVID-19 pandemic came with a lot of unexpected situations. First of all, it was the lockdowns that made some people even lose their jobs. Secondly, the bereavement, the illness, some of them costing members of their families a lot of money. Then there is now the bereavement, so many deaths caused by the pandemic. So we can see the family setup at the moment is having a crisis. And even the lockdown caused a lot of crises even in families, where members of the family now are together. They haven't been together for so long. And now even most of the marriages have broken up because of the pandemic. And what we can tell the viewer is that all this is going to be through. God is going to take everyone through the crisis. There is no crisis that lives forever. It comes and it passes. At a point it's going to pass. Even the viewer, the situation that they are undergoing in their individual lives, even in their families, that situation is going to pass. It's not going to live forever. So we can give our viewer hope that whatever they are undergoing, it's not going forever. God is going to intervene and is going to aid. Yeah, jobs are going to be restored, finances in the families are going to be restored, and even God is going to comfort the families that have been bereaved, and God is going to fill those areas, the places left by their bereaved ones. Yes.
Well, that's encouraging, and there lies hope. I mean, that's hopeful.
Yes.
There's a ray of hope because God is in this, even though we are in a crisis.
Yes.
I mean, just like the disciples in the boat.
Yes.
Crossing over.
Oh, yes.
In a crisis. But at least Christ was there.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful. Now, I've heard you talk about, earlier, and not in this episode, but you talk about golden traits.
Yes.
Do you call them golden rules?
Yes.
Of a leader?
Yes.
Would love to hear that.
Actually, we normally talk, especially when I'm training about the leadership in times of crisis. I normally talk about the golden rules of a leader during the crisis. How should a leader behave during a crisis? Because sometimes a crisis comes in very different ways. And if a leader is not very clear how to behave, sometimes it becomes worse and worse instead of controlling the situation. So we talk of golden rules in handling a crisis. And I'm going to talk about some of them. One of the major golden rule in terms of a crisis, Reverend Lucy, is that a leader must lead from the front. During times of crisis, a leader must lead from the front. Yeah? What that means is that you have to lead by an example as a leader. Yeah? because you have to tell people. You can't just tell people to do this and you are not doing it. You have to be the first person to do it, especially in times of crisis. And it's not only in times of crisis. Leading by example is a key leadership trait. And if you don't have it as a leader, you will fail. You have to do what you are telling people to do. For example, during the COVID-19 pandemic, if you are a leader and you are telling people to put mask and you don't put, people won't follow you, because people are able to do what you do, not what you tell them to do. Yes, yes. If you are
about
talking,
what to do. It's about what you're doing.
it's about what you're doing. Even in the family level, your kid will look at what you are doing as a father. Not what you are telling them to do. Yeah, they'll be very keen to observe what does dad does, what does mom does. Yeah, but not what we are telling them to do. Action speaks louder than words. It applies also in leadership. As a leader, at whatever level, whatever you are telling your people to do, you must be leading from the front by example.
Wow.
Yes.
Leading from the front.
Yes.
Not telling people go.
Yes.
And where they are going or where you expect them to go, you are not there.
You are not there.
Wow, that's very profound. Yeah.
And I'd like also to state here that even before I go to the next point, that good leaders shine during the times of crisis.
So it's also an opportunity. It can also provide an
Leaders
opportunity.
are tested during a crisis. The best test for a leader is a crisis. When things are okay, we are all good. Leaders are all good, but real leaders are tested when there is a crisis. So many leaders shine during a crisis. For example, even in the country of Kenya, we can give examples of some people who have really shone during the pandemic. For example, the cabinet secretary for health, Honorable Mutahi Kagwe, you know, he was always there giving updates. And the chief administrative secretary, Dr. Massimo Wangangi, you know, Dr. Massimo Wangangi was not known before the pandemic, but during the pandemic, she was made a leader because of the pandemic. So real leaders, the real test of leadership is a crisis. When things are good, we never know who is a good leader or who is a bad leader. The same way sometimes crises come and they finish some leaders because of the way they manage them. Some leaders get done. Their leadership capability is done because of a crisis. Because they are seen, no, this person cannot lead, cannot give direction, cannot lead when there is a crisis. So leadership crisis is the real test of leadership. Yes.
Wow. I think because this is getting deep and nice.
Yes.
I think we would want to take a break.
Oh, great.
Because we want to internalize that.
Yes.
Yeah, because I mean that's profound, that a crisis can provide a do or die situation. You can either shine, you can either come out of it, you know, victorious,
yes,
and a good leader, or you can actually disappear.
Yes, from there.
From the sight,
good.
And people forget you.
Yes.
For good.
Yes.
Well, I hope you are following this and you are taking notes, because this is very important. Right now we're in a crisis, another mini crisis that come out of the main crisis. And of course, again, life comes with also crisis. So we are either out of one, resting before we go to another one, and hence the need to know how to navigate through crisis. We will be back after a short break. Please do not go away.
We welcome your feedback on our programming. For questions or comments, kindly get in touch with us on email info@kaktv.org, SMS us, or call us on 0794 588 054.
Inasemekana mtafutaji hachoki.
Hakuna kazi rahisi, kazi zote ni ngumu.
Hakuna kitu mwanamume anafanya hapa sisi tunashindwa kufanya. Hakuna.
Akichoka kesha pata.
We only get limited in the mind. Exactly. Mimi nasema my space, my creation, I become.
Ungana nasi kwenye kipindi cha Kazi na Mali ambapo tunakuhimiza.
Bado safari ipo. Tunang'ang'ana.
Kukuhamasisha.
Jua kali tunatengeneza vitu ambazo zinapatikana katika kila nyumba. Hata nyumba kuu ya Kenya State House utapata mali ya jua kali ziko huko.
Na kukuelimisha kuhusu sekta mbalimbali zinazounda nguzo kuu za uchumi wa nchi kwa jumla.
Kama association tunawahimiza kabisa kila mtu awe na ile card ya insurance ambayo ni ya serikali.
Usikose Kazi na Mali kila siku ya Jumanne saa 1:30 jioni hapa KAK TV.
Welcome back, dear viewer, and we really appreciate the fact that you are with us and you have stayed with us on the Rays of Hope program. And again, we thank you for keeping it KAK TV. Today, on this program, we are discussing leadership in times of crisis. And, this comes at the right time because we are going through many crises. We may say maybe COVID-19 is a major crisis, but with that also comes other crises in between. And today, Mr. John Mwai, who is a leadership consultant, is a leadership trainer and a lawyer, is bringing us a lot of insights into this and helping us, discover ways in which we can navigate through this and emerge victorious. Actually, we went on break at the point where we were saying leaders can shine.
Yes.
Through crisis.
Yes.
Become better people, shine there, and even gain confidence from people.
Yes.
And other leaders disappear. I got, that is a bit worrying.
Yes.
That a leader would just disappear because they didn't manage to, to navigate through a crisis well, or
Yes.
to lead well in a crisis. Now, let's continue with the golden rule.
Yes, we had said that the first golden rule is leading by example, or leading from the front.
Yeah.
The second golden rule is acting with a great sense of urgency. Great sense of urgency, because a crisis just comes. Sometimes there is no preparedness. Sometimes there were no policies. There were no rules. Because sometimes a crisis finds level of rules, there is no crisis like the other. Yeah.
They are different.
A fire crisis is not like floods crisis. Yeah. A health crisis that like the one we have is not like a terrorism crisis. Crises are all different. They come in different ways and the forms. So sometimes there are no manuals to deal with a crisis. There are no prepared procedures to deal with a certain crisis because you don't know what will happen tomorrow, the next minute. So a crisis requires great sense of urgency, great sense of making decisions. You have to be very swift as a leader to know that this is the right decision. I have to do this at what point, and you can't just slip back and do things the normal way. You can't wake up at 8 to handle a crisis. You have to wake up earlier than you do to manage a crisis. You can't come to the office at 8 because it's normally said you report to the office at 8. You have to report earlier to manage a crisis. You have to stay awake the whole night managing a crisis. You have to act with a sense of urgency. Yes.
Wow. So it calls for that kind of adjustment very, very fast.
Very, very fast.
Swiftness. Because it's unexpected, it's fast.
Yes.
It can mess us.
Yes.
Wow.
If you take your time to handle a crisis, the more time you take, the worse it becomes. And it is in times of how to manage a crisis, how to make decisions, how to execute some of the decisions that you want executed. If you lay back and wait, the crisis becomes worse and worse. For example, like the COVID-19, if decisions were not made about lockdown and all that, maybe situations would have been worse than the way it has been. Yes.
Wow. Let's continue with our class. This is good. We're learning.
Yes.
Yes.
Another golden rule, in terms of a crisis, you are supposed to listen to your people. Sometimes as leaders, we are up there and we don't know what is happening down there. Sometimes you have to take your time and listen to what are the people saying. What are my followers saying? What are my subordinates saying? Yeah, even in organizations, even in the corporate world, when there is a crisis and you are up there, sometimes it's good to go down and listen to what your people are saying. Sometimes the people down there have solutions. They have a better picture of what is happening than what you have up there. So it calls for a leader to listen more and to listen from his followers. Yes, so that you are able to make the right decisions. Sometimes we make decisions based on the long conclusions or long evidence. But when you are able to go down there, you're able to get more information on how to deal with a crisis.
And that requires then a lot of humility on the part of the leader, because then sometimes we don't want to seem vulnerable in the sense of we are listening. We want to know what's going on. You can bring your ideas. Sometimes some leaders interpret that as vulnerability, and we don't want that.
That's true. That's true, Reverend. Some of the leaders don't want to listen to their juniors or to their followers. They feel they have the monopoly of decisions and the information. Yeah. So it calls for a leader to be very humble. It calls for humility from the part of the leader so that you are able to get the information from down there. And normally what happens, if you are not that leader who goes down there, at a point the people down there, they block you, they switch off. So you are alone there making your decisions, and they are your own decisions. Yeah, you are not together with your followers. They realize you don't listen to them, you only talk, you only decisions come from top down, but there is nothing that comes from bottom up. So what happens at a point now, the followers switch off. They shut you off. You won't know what is happening there. You'll be alone there.
And maybe your follower is that 5-year-old child who is trying to catch your attention on something.
Yes.
And you're not listening.
And you're not listening.
Then along the way you lose them.
You lose them. You are alone.
You are alone.
You don't have people to lead.
Yeah.
And that's where you reach a point you lose influence because they won't listen to you. You tell them we are going this direction. Them they have taken another direction. And you find yourself alone up there.
Alone up there.
You find yourself as a father in the family. Your children don't listen to you because at a point you are not listening to them and they realized, oh, dad has never listened to us even when tell them anything. So washa yeye afanye vile anataka.
We can do without them.
We can do without them. And they start taking another direction. Yes.
That would be very sad.
And even when we are talking of political leadership, after leaders are elected, that's what happens. They go, they reach up there, they don't go to huko mashinani to know what is happening, to listen to their people. And at a point they find themselves alone there. Yes.
And I've heard some people actually change their telephone lines.
Yes.
So that you don't reach them.
Yes, the telephone line they are using during the campaigns when they get elected, they switch them off. So you can't get them. But a good leader is one who is able to go down there, to listen to the common mwananchi, to listen to their followers. Even in the corporate setup, a good manager, a good CEO is somebody who is able to give an ear even to a cleaner. Yes. Yes.
Wow, that's good. So that is listening to the people.
Listening to the people. Another golden rule is timeless and necessary communication.
Timeless.
Timely and necessary communication. What happens during a crisis? Communication is normally very key. And down there, Reverend Lucy, if time allows, we shall talk about communication in a big way.
In a big way, yeah.
During a crisis, people are seeking information. They want to hear more what is happening about the crisis. And what happens if a leader, you don't communicate? If you hold information to yourself, what will happen? People start speculating. People start making their own conclusion on issues. And it becomes worse like now when we have the social media. You know, there is even the fake news. People start generating their own information, their own conclusion, and they start spreading it. So as a leader, you have to come up and say, this is the position, this is where we are, this is where we are going, this is how we are going to get there. Yeah. But if as a leader you hold information and you don't talk to your people, they will start speculating.
Wow.
They will start rumor-mongering. They may come with their own information, and most of the times the wrong information.
So if you come late, you may be having the right information, factual and everything.
Yes.
But it matters when you
release it
release it to the people.
Yes. Yes.
When you let your family know maybe that I'm out of my job, I'm out of my business.
Yes.
That's why we have to scale down and all these things. If
Yes.
you withhold that information,
Yes.
then there might be some misunderstanding.
Yeah, especially in the family's context. Sometimes, especially men hold information. Sometimes you have lost your job, but you don't want to disclose.
You're still buying your newspaper and
and every
moving
morning,
like you're still working.
Every morning you are waking up very early and
Going to town.
or wherever, I don't know, coming in the evening, and you are not communicating. But at a time, it starts catching up with you because there are some things you are not able to do. And now people, your family starts questioning. Dad was doing ABCD. Dad was paying school fees on time. What is happening? Yeah, and they start speculating. Yeah, even the wife will start speculating. Where is he taking his money?
There must be somewhere else.
There's something else he's taking the money. They start speculating, and sometimes they make the wrong conclusion. But when you open up and communicate this the situation, people will not have that chance to
I
speculate.
think hold that point because we want to delve more before we end the program.
Yes.
Just spending some little time
Yes.
on communication because again it's very key as you're putting it.
Yes.
So let's move on with some more.
Another golden rule
Yeah.
in terms of crisis is ignoring side issues and politics. Leveled when a crisis comes, there are so many side issues. There are so many politics. For example, even when the pandemic hit the world, there are so many information going around. Yeah, as a leader, you should avoid. You should not listen to those politics. Yeah, listen to the facts. Listen to the facts from the experts, from people who know, but avoid the side issues, avoid the politics. Yeah, like even during the COVID-19 pandemic, when it hit the world, there was so many information going around. Some of them not factual, a lot of rumors. Yeah, if as a leader you listen to that, you will get distracted from your core area. Avoid the politics. Some people are saying that there are people who want to make money out of the COVID-19. Sometimes the people who are saying that the virus was released to certain regions of the world. You know, all those side issues.
We even doubted whether it was
Yes,
real.
we even doubted.
No, I remember even in our country,
Yes.
actually, I remember as you're talking about that,
Yes.
we doubted the young lady
Yes.
who was first found with the virus. And we
Yes.
thought,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
this is stage managed.
This
It
is
can't
stage
be.
managed.
Now we are feeling the heat. It was real.
It was real.
It was real.
So as a leader, if you start listening to those politics and the side issues, you will lose focus.
You will not move.
You will not move.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Side shows, and there are quite many.
There are quite many.
And actually, social media, we need to be careful. I know you mentioned social media earlier on. We need to be very careful on how we are using it in our personal lives and even in our corporate areas.
Yes.
Because it can also destroy, because so many side shows and talks, fake news and all these are happening there. So if we are leaders who derive our, our guidance from there, then we lose focus.
We lose it.
That's key.
Because there is so much, there's a lot of side issues, especially in the social media. So much information is being shared, and it goes very fast. It passes like bushfire, and within a short time, there's a lot of information out there that is not factual, that is not real. So as a leader, if you concentrate on that, you will ignore information even from experts and concentrate on that. Even sometimes when a fire tragedy happens, sometimes we start hearing a lot of politics, a lot of politics, a lot of side issues. It's this camp that burned, whatever. This was caused by whatever. And as a leader, you need to listen to your experts and what they are saying. Otherwise, if you listen to the side shows, you lose it and lose it
You
completely.
end up, as they say, majoring on the minors.
Yes, majoring on the minors.
On the minors.
Yes.
And spending so much energy on that.
Yes.
While the real thing you're not even addressing.
Yes.
And then the crisis overwhelms you.
Overwhelms you.
And
it gets out of control.
It gets out of control.
Yes.
And I think that's what we should take care of.
Yes.
That it shouldn't get out of control. We should manage it.
Yes, we should manage it.
We should manage it.
Yes.
Are we done with the rules?
There is another one, final one,
Yeah.
which is also very key. As a leader, you should give people hope. Even when there is a crisis. Give people hope, but prepare for the worst case scenario. As a leader, you should tell people tomorrow will be better. Even when at your levels you know it's not that good. And at your level of preparing, you prepare for the worst case scenario. Because sometimes we don't know how a tragedy will go. We don't know how a crisis and for how long it will be. We don't know its effects in a country, in a community, or even in a family. So you give people hope. Even as a man, when you lose your job, and you know the situation is worse, you are trying to look for other jobs and you can't get, give your family hope. Oh, I'm waiting for a job from somewhere. Yeah, but you are preparing in case
For the worst.
In case I don't get another job. Do I go to self-employment or what do I do? What plan B do I have? Yes.
Well, I hope you're listening to that. Give hope.
Yes.
As you prepare for the worst. We must
Yes.
always give hope.
Yes.
We cannot lose hope. And as we say in this program, we can lose anything else,
Yes.
but not hope. That's why it's a race of hope. There is hope in every situation.
Yes.
Even as leaders, we know that sometimes it's bleak. We don't know even how we're going to get out of it, but we trust in God.
Yes.
But in the meantime, we must encourage God's people. That is going to be, tomorrow will be better
Tomorrow will be better
than today.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Wow. So shall we now go back to the area of communication?
Yes.
Yes.
Let's go to the area of communication
Yes.
in a crisis.
Yeah.
Because communication is what holds everything together during a crisis. And the lack thereof of communication can scatter everything. So when we are talking about crisis management, you have to know when to communicate, what to communicate, and how to communicate it. Because in terms of everything in leadership, communication is normally very key. Sometimes leaders may have even very good vision, but the way they communicate it, it becomes destroyed.
People don't buy it.
People don't buy it. And that's why you find sometimes even in organization, you hear the person who is having a vision is told, no, you can't tell it to the people. Let's tell so and so to go and speak about it.
Yeah.
Because you may be having a lot of knowledge, a lot of information about your vision, and it's a good vision. But when you go to communicate to the people, you lose everything. Yeah. So that is why communication is very, very key during times of crisis. Yeah. You can cause a lot of apprehension, tension, and fear by the way you communicate to your people when there is a crisis. And as we had said there before, Reverend Lucy, people are thirsty for information in times of crisis. You find everybody opening their radios, TV stations, going to buy newspapers, Googling, trying to look for information. And when they do that, there is so much information. They will get information. But as a leader, you should give the right information. Yes. You should give the right information. And there are some rules about communication. When you are communicating, you need to be human as possible. Even when the situation is so worse, make sure that your message is human. There's a way you can communicate and you cause a lot of fear because of the way you are communicating.
You can make it worse.
You can make it worse.
Yeah.
Because if there is a crisis and you are a leader, you start feeling people now prepare, people are dying. The deaths are all over. Tumeisha sasa.
Hakuna hope.
Mtu sasa.
Mtu ajipange.
Mtu ajipange, mtu aongee na Mungu wake. You have to be human. You have to give people hope. Yeah. You have to communicate in the right way. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
You must be human
Yes.
as you communicate.
As you communicate.
That's key.
Yes.
So it's not like, pa,
It's not like, pa,
we are done.
you are done.
Wow.
Or sometimes in times of tragedy.
Yeah.
Sometimes you find, even when there's an accident or tragedy,
Yeah.
you find people posting pictures of the victims, in the social media.
Yeah.
You don't do that. As a leader, there are some information you don't release because you know the danger it will cause if you release it at that moment. And sometimes I like the way government works.
Yeah.
Government departments are normally very careful on how they release information, even in times of deaths or in times of accidents. They release information slowly by slowly, because sometimes you also need to prepare the people who are being affected by that information. You have to prepare them psychologically. Slowly by slowly. And we can even caution members of the public who sometimes accurate information without caution. Yes, because sometimes they lack that human aspect of communication.
Of communication.
Yes.
Well, and even as churches, sometimes people, because of the speed of social media, sometimes they think even church is a bit slow.
Yes.
But again, it's that process of knowing who to involve and make sure everyone is at par before a certain piece of information is released.
Yes.
Because it can either make or break.
Yes.
I think it's important for our people to know that this is part of leadership, and it requires that. And even as you talked about us being leaders, first of all, of ourselves.
Yes.
And therefore, we are the people who share photos.
Yeah,
we are the people who want to take photos. The other day, there was a lion in Ongatarongai.
Yes.
Where I come from.
Yes.
And guess what?
Yes.
People were there to see the lion.
Yes.
Can you imagine? And to take photos. No, that's very strange. It's we thank God that it never harmed anyone, and that the handlers came at the right time. But that's the same thing we do. When there's an accident, when there's something, we are all there. When we get some little dossier, we don't even know the facts. We start spreading it. And we have even destroyed lives on social media.
Yes.
Destroying people's names and all that, just because we are not human also.
Yes. Actually, we have to take also some responsibility, some individual responsibility on the kind of information we share out, on how we use the social media, because the social media has also been used so much to destroy people's lives, to destroy careers, that it becomes very bad. So we have to take some responsibility. You have to take some leadership as a person. Know when you are tapping that phone, when you are releasing, you are sending that, you are pressing that send button. You need to ask yourself, what is this am I sending? What is this am I spreading to the public? Because once you press the send button, you can't take it back.
Exactly. And I know someone's future has been destroyed.
Yes.
Because maybe they could have been employed even somewhere.
Yes.
But people go back to their records.
Yes.
And they see that. It never forgets, as you're saying.
It never forgets.
Whatever we are putting out there.
Yes.
So we need to have good leadership of ourselves.
Yes.
And what we have control of, our handles and all that. We must begin to wind up now.
Yes.
So, Mr. Moai, what keeps you going? Maybe perhaps someone out there is wondering, wow, he's very articulate, he knows where he's going. What keeps him going in crisis? You must have gone through some crisis also in life. What keeps you going?
I've gone some crises in life. And what keeps me going is trust in God. Trusting in God. And when you feel like everything is lost, when you feel like the burdens of this world are too much, you just trust in God to lift you up from the crisis you are in. So I can also like to tell the viewer that in the midst of whatever you are undergoing, because I know that our viewers and so many people in this country are undergoing very difficult situations, the best remedy is trusting in God, and God will lift you up from the situation, from the crisis you are in.
Wow. You have trusted in God, it has worked. We can trust in God, it can work.
Yes.
And I believe because we've just scratched the surface of this area, it's very deep. Communication itself is wide, and we'd want to delve on that maybe at a future episode. and also the area of leadership again, generally, and even in crisis.
Yes.
We've just scratched the surface.
Yes.
I believe you will avail yourself.
Yes,
when,
I will.
when called upon.
Yes.
Yeah, but in the meantime, you're still training.
Yes, in the meantime, I'm still training.
Yeah.
I train churches, I train corporates, I train circles,
Yeah.
and I mentor individuals who are leaders
Yeah.
to lead the best way they can lead.
Wonderful.
Yes.
And so, dear viewer, you already know that because we know this wonderful trainer, if you need him somewhere, we can give you his contacts. You can get them through CAC TV or through the Christian Education Department. Yeah, he's available for you. You can consult him. We are very grateful that you found time to be with us and that you've followed through this. Let us put into practice the things that we keep learning every day, because it makes a difference. It makes a difference for us to start, implementing, being doers of what we have been taught. And the world will become a better place. Our families will become better. Our lives will become better when we start implementing the things that we are learning. We have learned about leadership in times of crisis, but most importantly is that we need to trust in God. No crisis lasts forever. They come and go. Bigger crises have hit humanity, they have gone. COVID will also go, and so will all other crises that we come across. So keep hope alive. You cannot give up. Your hope is founded on Christ. You cannot give up. Keep hope alive. Thank you again. I'm Lucy Wawero, wishing you all the best. Keep